Hi, Ben here from Gwinear Angling. Welcome to the Gwinear Guide to Newquay Town Beaches. Alright, so first things first, what are the Newquay Town Beaches? Well, the Town Beaches are the 4 beaches that stretch from Towan by Newquay Harbour there to Lusty Glaze on my left, just before you get to Porth. And you've got in order Towan, Great Western, Tolcarne and Lusty Glaze. And the differentiating factor between these beaches is the level of exposure to the sort of predominant west-southwesterly swells that we get here. Towan is the most sheltered from this, and Lusty Glaze picks up the most of the swell. So as you go further along, you have a range of options there. If the sea is very, very rough, you can find fishing at Towan generally, although it might be weedy. And if the sea's quite calm and you're looking for that bit of surf to attract bass, say, then Lusty Glaze would be a great option. Typically, bass anglers these days tend to concentrate their efforts around Tolcarne and Lusty Glaze. These have the most in the way of rock features as well that are very attractive to fish like bass, where you've got features in an otherwise sort of featureless landscape. That's going to attract prey, and that attracts predators, and that should attract us anglers as well. So look for those. One of the great things about these beaches is that they have the benefit of good vantage points from the cliffs at Newquay. You can really take a good look at these beaches at low tide, check out for any gullies and gutters or anything that looks like a feature that would be attractive to fish, and you've got the benefit of that knowledge before you go fishing. And that part of watercraft is definitely something that we would suggest concentrating on when you come to fish places like this. Choose the timing of your session very carefully, because in the daytime here, particularly in the height of summer, there's an awful lot of water users here, and you don't want to be tangling with those. If that is the kind of day that you're looking at, it'd be better to concentrate your fishing at night. When you come to the autumn time and the crowds sort of thin out a little bit, quite often you can get away with fishing in the day here, particularly when the sea's rough. And when you get a nice sort of bumpy sea in here, these beaches can fish really well for bass. And typically we'd advise going for those days when there's a bit of surf here, because the bass do find that very attractive. Of course, there are other species to be caught here. More and more these days we're seeing small-eyed ray caught from these beaches, which is good for the general fisherman out there. You do get the odd flounder on these beaches, but they're not really a feature. For the main, it's people targeting bass that concentrate on these. And while most bass anglers are looking at Tolcarne and Lusty Glaze, it's always worth looking at the other beaches as well. There's been some big bass caught here in the past. I remember when I was a kid, my granddad told me about an old angler called Dickie Moffat who caught a 15-pound bass from Towan. They all saw him carrying it back up the hill on his back. And this would have been like the 60s, 70s, something like that, a long time ago. But it does show that that beach has the potential to attract some really big fish, and that would still hold true to the current day. So every year, some really nice bass are caught in this area, so always be prepared. Never a bad option to chuck out a big bait, even if you're fishing lugworm for the smaller bass. It's always worth sticking out a big squid or a big mackerel bait, just in case it's a big one on the prowl. Hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you'd like to support the channel, please give the video a like and hit that subscribe button. So parking wise, what are your options in this area? Well, this particular part of the town isn't blessed with an obvious choice of car park. There's not a big council administered one nearby, for example. There are car parks, but they're privately administered and they will cost you an arm and a leg if you want to have any kind of reasonable length fishing sessions. So it's very hard for me to suggest those to you. If that is something that you find acceptable, you can go on Google and find some of those and yeah, take your chance there. What I do is if I'm coming here in the day, I tend to look for street parking around. Of course, if you do that, you may end up parking quite a way away. And of course, you need to make sure that there aren't any restrictions where you've parked as well. So that comes with its own risks, but that's the option that I go for personally. In the evening time and at night, you shouldn't have any real trouble finding street parking. So that would be the avenue I would suggest going down. So there's just one more thing to make you aware of. Just be aware that the foreshores at some of these beaches, Tolcarne and Lusty Glaze for instance, are privately owned above the high water line. And if you go down for a high water session and you are fishing on these areas, they're manned by security guards, there's a good chance that you'll be asked to leave. So just be aware that if you are going down, it's best to go for a high to low session or a low to high sort of session, or fish over the low water periods. A lot of people choose to do that. So I hope you've enjoyed this Gwinear guide to Newquay Town Beaches. If you have, why not check out another in our Gwinear guide series? If you've got any questions at all, just pop them in the comments, or you can message us on Facebook, or even better, if you're in the Newquay area, pop into the shop and ask us. It's the #1 place in the area for fresh bait, quality tackle and sound local advice. We'd be delighted to answer your question in there. Cheers.